And welcome to another episode of the Michigan Sports Truth Podcast on Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube. I'm Taylor Phillips along with Ed Smith. Merry Christmas, man.
Belated Merry Christmas to you as well, Taylor. Hope everything was good for you and your household.
Yep, and we had power the whole time. Uh,
Yeah.
yeah, after that, through that storm. Wow. So the Lions, man, what the heck happened there? They're just the run game. Actually, I don't have to ask. The run game was just the run defense rather was nowhere. Deontay Foreman. Let me get my note card real fast. While the Red Wings and Penguins are headed to overtime, tied at 4, the Red Wings were down 4-0
I know Foreman
after
had about
one.
I know Foreman had about 158, 165 on the ground, and
21 rushes for 165 rushing yards. Deontay
yeah,
Foreman.
yeah, and Hubbard was 125 himself.
Yeah,
That's insane, giving up over 100 yards rushing to two guys. Now I know what the Ohio State defense felt like.
no kidding. 315 rushing for the Panthers, 250 receiving / passing, 565 total yards.
Mm, mm, mm. I
Man,
can't wait to dissect that the analysis. I'll be ready to tag in whenever you are.
yeah, let's do it.
Yeah, I gotta say, it's you mentioned about the run defense. I'll do you one better. It was non-existent. And it was non-existent from the very first play when you saw Chuba Hubbard rather, just gash his way up the middle, up to the second level with relative ease, no resistance, no pull, no pushback, just shoot. He found easy gaps, easy holes up the alley, and when you have your secondary, your corners and your safeties being your last line of defense, making tackles on running games, on running plays, that's not a good sign. It lets you know that you got played with physically at the line of scrimmage. You didn't get any penetration. And again, your gaps and your assignments were not there. And one thing also, bad tackling. And that's another thing I saw constantly. Um, Bad position, bad form, bad technique, whatever it was. Some of those plays, those big plays that Carolina ran off, were a result of bad tackling, not wrapping up. I'm sure the yards after carry had been bountiful for what the Panthers were doing with their offense and their plays and their plays throughout. You mentioned Taylor with the almost 600 yards in total yards given up by the Lions defense. Let's not forget of all those running yards and rushing yards that they gave up, 245 came in the first half. Just the first half, you gave up over 240 yards on the ground. That's embarrassing. I already mentioned the fact that you already gave up over 100 yards just to two guys alone. But you had Sam Darnold playing with you, like you were food with the RPOs and the read options. It was just a mess, and that's not a good sign when you know that you have the Bears coming up and Justin Fields, who knows a thing or two about being mobile and doing things against that Lions defense. But we'll get to that when we preview the Bears game in just a minute. But back to here with this game of Carolina. Um, Despite the fact that, again, we saw no resistance at all with the Lions defense, particularly up front with the rushing game, stopping the run. Um, while that was the case, it didn't help that the offense had missed opportune moments and missed opportune plays to where had they just handled better and executed better, might be potentially looking at a different game. And I'll say this because you look at the biggest turning point was the game was tied at 7. Let's not forget the Lions offense responded well. Even though the defense got, was made into Swiss cheese in the opening drive by Carolina, the Lions, they responded well. Jared Goff looked like a stud, making shots, taking shots down the field, finding DJ Chark, standing in the pocket, taking some hits, using play action, got himself a touchdown near the goal line, just brilliant stuff. And you saw how he was moving the ball again down the field on that second drive when the Lions were able to get it stopped defensively. And again, that's where the game turned right there on that muff snap fumble near the goal line of Carolina because the Lions, you mean to tell me, if had they not, muffed that up, they likely would have scored another touchdown, and that's complete momentum swing. I'm thinking that's what, a 14-point swing from that point on, and then the floodgates open. Punt. You had offensive possession after offensive possession ending in a punt. not capitalizing, bad field position, not getting any points, just weren't able to get in a rhythm offensively at all. And some might also say some of it didn't help with the fact that you weren't using Jameson Williams enough. Um, Now I don't know what was the reason or issue with that, other than Woodward Sports, giving a report or a source that's saying that Williams might have tweaked his knee at some point. I don't see what the reason why, other than the fact that and you can hear it. You can hear it straight from the horse's mouth himself with Jared Goff. The field conditions, which again which were a result of that Arctic blast, we saw throughout most of the country throughout last week, leading up to Christmas weekend. Michiganders that are listening to this right now, you ain't got to hear that twice, considering that you have to deal with all that, not just the snow, mind you, but all that cold and wind and chill. So that some of that was able to get down even to the Carolinas, to the point where it was very cold, very windy, and the field conditions were unfortunately not suitable if you believe Jared Goff. Uh, Frozen, not good for footing, planning, turning, or any of that. So maybe the Lions were cautious of that and didn't want to use that, you know, to potentially aggravate or re-aggravate something with Jameson's knee. But with Jameson Williams himself liking a tweet expressing frustration as to why he isn't getting enough snaps, not getting enough touches, or whatever, I can kind of see that sentiment, see that frustration from one perspective of, hey, he's playing now, he's activated, he wants to get some reps in, he wants to work off his rust. Let's see what I can do. Let's see what the kid can do. You've already seen a taste of it. Let's see if we can expand more on it, get him some reps in as more as possible. That way, when you go into next season fully healthy, fully prepared, you know what to expect. Expand on that now while you still got the chance here at the end of the season. Who knows? He may come up big for you in a play where you might need him, whether it be here against Chicago or against Green Bay or whatever. Try to get JMO more involved. So between that, and I will say one more thing though, at least in terms of the offense, what it was or was not doing. I can't put the blame on Jared Goff. Even with that fumble, I don't think that was necessarily his fault. Frank Ragnow, who has been a stud all year, he was elected to the Pro Bowl. That was not his finest moment on that hand on to Goff right there. He completely hit Goff in his leg, messed up the timing and everything that led to the loose ball. Carolina recovered, and the rest was history. So between all that, you can't say that Jared Goff was the reason that the Lions lost that game. No, not with 355 yards passing, 3 touchdowns, no interceptions, and a 110 passer rate. You can't say that. Jared Goff, this whole entire stretch of games ever since the 1-6 start when the team went 6-1, he's been phenomenal with how he's been not just producing down the field, getting the ball down the field, but also taking care of the ball as well. And aside from that fumble, again, another game with no interceptions. I expect to see that continue here against Chicago. So while I understand fans may be clamoring to say, hey, we need to get a new QB, we need to get a new QB. First and foremost, y'all need to take care of that defense. And from what I saw on Saturday, there's still lots of work that needs to be done. Hopefully Brad Holmes can address that in the draft.
Yeah, we got some breaking news here real fast. The Red Wings beat the Penguins in overtime 5-4. Jake Wallman, of all people, scored the game winner from Andrew Kopp in 3-on-3 overtime. They were down 4-0 after one period of play, and they came all the way back, scoring 2 goals in the second and then 2 more goals late in the third period. David Perron tied it up with around 3 minutes left to play in that third period. And then Jake the Snake Wallman, the grittiness of Jake Wallman. Oh, my goodness.
Nice show of resiliency by the Wings.
Yeah. But back to the Lions. Man, heck of a win for the Red Wings in Pittsburgh against Sidney Crosby again and Mulligan and the Penguins. But back to the Lions here. They're tied with the Packers and Seahawks at 7-8. And The Lions
Base.
will have to work on correcting their run defense and passing defense, but especially their run defense. But at the same time, their passing defense as well.
Yeah,
So
there's not much you can do with your pass defense. Your secondary is what it is. Jeff Okuda has not been himself lately the past couple of weeks. I don't know if this illness has been dealing with or whatever the case, but he has not been quite the same player as he was at the start of the season. Now you're dealing with hearing news of Kirby Joseph. He was on the injured list today. He didn't practice today. You don't know what his status is going to look like for Sunday. Um, Knowing all that, I would say you focus more on trying to get back to what we saw with the run defense looked like with the 6-1 stretch. Seeing them hold players like Dalvin Cook to 20 or so yards on the ground. It's going to be hard to do though because between David Montgomery, who's for the past three out of his last 4 games averaging close to 5 yards a carry, and Justin Fields, who amongst obviously running quarterbacks outside, but you could say he's probably been the best all year long. He's got over 1,000 yards rushing, and he's been averaging about 6.7 yards per carry himself. So that's roughly almost 7 yards every time he decides to tuck the ball and run himself, or design QB play or whatever. So that is the big area that needs to be addressed for the Lions. That's what sets you off behind the 8 ball from the beginning against the Panthers. So you better believe the Bears are going to be trying to replicate that against you as well. So once you try to neutralize or fix that first, the rest will follow, and you focus more on that. Then it puts you in a better position where Justin Fields has to be forced to passing the ball to beat you. And as we saw with the pick 6 last time, that wasn't exactly the case. So try to focus on that. Just constantly do better with the turnover battle. I think we saw the difference of what losing the turnover battle can do to you, like what we saw last week against Carolina. Aside from that, the Lions with their 6-1 stretch, they have done a fabulous job of taking care of the ball. Whereas the Bears, on the opposite end, they've been in the midst of this 8-game losing streak, and each and every single one of those games, they've turned the ball over at least once. So that's going to be another key for Detroit if they want to try to win this game. You mentioned the secondary, Taylor. It's going to be, I'd say if you're going to be focusing on stopping the run, the trade-off will be watch out for what Cole Kmet can do against this defense in the secondary, because tight ends have always been an Achilles heel for this defense over the years. And it's been ringing true again this year. And Cole Kmet, in the first matchup with the Bears, he had 4 receptions, 74 yards, and 2 touchdowns. Look for Chicago to try to utilize him as a key weapon again in this game. So if you're the Lions, knowing that, you probably got to expect yourself to be in another shootout. Because remember, last time it ended in a 31-30 game. I wouldn't be surprised if this ended up in the high 20s, if not the 30s once again. So that means you got to make every possession count. Finish your drives with touchdowns, no turnovers, and get Jameson Williams involved. Use more JMO. Whether it be as a decoy, use him as a runner, get him some snaps, and yes, try to get him some more balls thrown his way. Make him feel more a part of your offense. Let the other side know, we got this other weapon that you have to worry about besides Amon-Ra St. Brown. So that's what I would expect to see if I'm the Lions. I know Vegas has him currently as a 6-point favorite. I don't think that's what I see. I still expect the Lions to win, but I expect Chicago to cover. If you were to ask me what the score would be, I would expect either, both teams, their defenses have given up at least 26 points a game this season. I wouldn't be surprised if this was a 28-27 or say a 29-26 sort of affair. I expect points to be scored. The Lions will win, but the Bears will cover.
Oh man, that's a bold prediction. Well, considering the Bears are 3-12, and Justin Fields can control an offense, but I think the Lions are gonna barely cover. 42-31 is my score. The Bears have no defense whatsoever. That's why I'm picking this score. 42-31
True, but
Lions.
neither do the Lions. The Bears don't have
No.
a defense, but neither do the Lions. Just letting you know.
No. Well, that's why they have to work on their run defense, like you pointed out. That they're just trying to correct it before they prepare for Lambeau Field against Aaron Rodgers and the Packers, Week 18. You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
get ready for that. That's looking like a potential season on the line for both
Yes,
teams kind of deal.
a wild card spot on the line too, especially. Yeah, same thing. So that's Lions. Now let's preview the Fiesta Bowl, the Verbo Fiesta Bowl between our Michigan Wolverines and the TCU Horned Frogs. Saturday at 4, the College Football Playoff semifinal on ESPN. That'll be followed at 8 o'clock on ESPN the same night by number 1 Georgia against number 4 Ohio State. Georgia's going to win running away. But Michigan and TCU, I think this one's going to be a fight, but I still think Michigan will win. Don't you think? Oh, Ed, you're muted.
Sorry about that. Like you said, I do agree, Taylor. Michigan should be expected to win this one. Um, what's the current line spread on Vegas if you have it in front of you?
I'm going to look it up right about now.
Yeah, no problem. I'll discuss
Michigan -8.
-8.
Oh my!
Okay.
Holy smokes!
Yeah, I agree with that. I can see this being a close game in the first half, like what we've seen throughout most of
Right.
Michigan's games this year. And I'm going to say TCU is going to try to hang with them a little bit more longer in the third quarter than most. Yeah, in fact, I expect them to do better in the third quarter than most of their opponents have done all year. But I still expect Michigan to win this one pulling away in the fourth. Again, I think their offensive line between their award-winning center Olu Oluwatimi, their offensive line in general, winning a back-to-back Joe Moore Award for being the best offensive line in the country. You have a fully healthy, and I do mean healthy, Donovan Edwards. That is going to be, yeah, exactly. He's going to be ready to go up and down on that defense. And if you ask me, while TCU has things that does work to their advantage, I still see things to where Michigan is they're the bigger team up front. They're the more established team with the run. As long as JJ McCarthy doesn't get too wild, because I think he controls the whole pace of the game. Now, if you want to say he's being a game manager, sure, but how he controls the absolute center and pace of everything with his decision making, with his throws, moving the chains, obviously making big plays down the field, finishing drives with touchdowns, which again will get the defense's attention and respect, which will then allow the running game to take its due course. That's what we've noticed also the past couple of weeks with these big games, with Ohio State, with the Big Ten championship game against Purdue. JJ making big plays when it matters most, gets the defense respect. So that way, when we bust those big runs, that's because they respected the passing game more. So we're gonna have to see more of that consistently from JJ in this game, potentially the next one as well, from Michigan to pull this one off. Now, on the other side, I think for TCU, they do have 3 big targets that they can use at their disposal for their passing attack. Their 2 receivers, Quentin Johnson, he's 6'4", Savion Williams, he's 6'5". Add on top of the fact that you got a tight end in Jared Wiley, who's 6'7", you have reliable, big safety valves to throw to. But frankly, Michigan, they're not known as being big in the size department with their secondary. So if I'm TCU, I can see a potential advantage there. Not only that, TCU will have, in my opinion, an X factor of sorts with their quarterback. I noticed, I mentioned JJ McCarthy, of how everything is going to be riding on him, of how he controls and things on his side of the spectrum. But you can easily say the same thing about Max Duggan. The guy has been an absolute warrior for this team all year long. You saw that being exemplified with his performance in the Big 12 championship game, how exhausted he was at one point trying to will his team to victory. So that's the kind of fighter that this Michigan defense is going to be expecting to face. To be facing in this game. Luckily, aside from getting Donovan Edwards back, they're going to have Mike Morris back as well. He's coming off of an ankle injury. He was not able to play against Ohio State or against Purdue, but now with this month-long, break essentially, you know, again, which I would say is a positive and a negative. The negative would be, some of your players may be trying to work off some rust, but the positive is, you get back some of those players who have either been dealing with nagging injury or have not been able to play because of injury. So in the case of Donovan Edwards and Mike Morris, that's a big positive if you're Michigan. So, another thing to be looking out here if you're Michigan will be Mozzie Smith. This will be, again, more spotlight will be brought upon him now. He did answer some questions this week to the media regarding the whole case with his concealed weapons charge. An update on that, by the way, he was able to make a plea and get it reduced to a misdemeanor. I think his sentencing was originally set for the 29th, but with Michigan in the playoff, and obviously with how that correlates to the end of the year and everything, that hearing will not take place on the 12th of January, I believe. So Mozzie Smith was, again, explaining about how, what we've heard consistently before from his side of things, or those in his posting things in his defense about, the permit, the paperwork, and that sort of thing. And what we've seen consistently with regards to, the answers that Warren Manuel has been giving, and also now what we see with his teammates, the way they talk about him, the way they describe him, that this is not who he is as a person. He's not seen as a mean, violent, or malicious individual or threat to society or the community in any way, shape, or form. They even point out the fact that if that was the case, if that was the case with Mozzie, he wouldn't even be on the team. Harbaugh would not have that, would not tolerate that, is what they're saying. So, you take them at their word, sure, but it's a tricky situation that can't be easily answered, and we still got to let things play out in due course before we give our own full judgment on that.
Right, but they'll need Mozzie Smith nonetheless on the field.
Oh, yeah.
So, scoring prediction.
If I would say a score, I say Michigan pulls away late. TCU will try to keep it close, but Michigan's just going to be too strong, too powerful, too experienced. Again, they remember what the pain of what it was last year, going through what it was against Georgia. That's been their extra motivation for this year. Expect that to see that continue for this one. They're not looking ahead to
we read that in an article too.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and I think you're going to see that perfectly personified and exemplified and displayed in this game. You're not going to be looking ahead to, say, Georgia or even, dare I say, Ohio State once again, should the Buckeyes pull off the unthinkable. But, it's going to be a business-first approach. They recognize the job's not finished yet. And while TCU is going to give them all they can handle, Michigan is just going to be too much and pull away near the end. So my whole score prediction is going to say, I'll say Michigan 38, TCU 27.
All right. I'm going to go Michigan 42, TCU 28.
That's fair.
Yeah, 42-28 Michigan by 2 touchdowns. So that is the Wolverines. I can't wait. I can't wait for that. I see Michigan and Georgia in my crystal ball.
Yeah, I can't wait either. It's been a month-long wait coming up. I wonder how they're going to shake off that rust, but the fans can't wait. That fan base is going to travel. The alumni is going to show vocal support, and I expect to be a pro Michigan crowd in Arizona on Saturday for sure.
Yep. All right. Before we go, we have a source news drop to deliver to our audience. The Detroit Pistons are shopping Bojan Bogdanovic. So of course they've got to be because of the record. Although they beat the Orlando Magic tonight, 121-101, not 100. I just credited myself from the private messenger group chat. But the Pistons are shopping Bojan Bogdanovic. So yeah, we wanted to pass that along to our followers here and subscribers on YouTube. So
Yeah. So basically, don't be surprised if and when you hear a deal either on or before the trade deadline concerning Bogey. It's worth noting that the Pistons did sign him to a 2-year deal earlier this season.
yeah,
Maybe that's part of the plan all along. So that way, that the team that does trade for him won't have to worry about signing him to another deal past this season.
right. So that is our news from a source inside the team. So that is it. And still, what a comeback by the Red Wings, down 4-0 to beat the Penguins in overtime in Pittsburgh 5-4. So that is another episode of the Michigan Sports Truth Podcast. I'm Taylor Phillips. He's Ed Smith. Follow the Michigan Sports Truth Podcast on Twitter and Instagram at Michigan_Truth. Like its Facebook page, subscribe to its YouTube channel at the Michigan Sports Truth Podcast, and listen in audio form on Spreaker. Business shout-outs go to Cali Tickets. Get a hold of Mark Goldman at 877-225-8425 or visit CaliTickets.com. Creative Embroidery of Cadillac for designing the Michigan Sports Truth Podcast logo on my shirts, and United Food Service Solutions of Grand Ledge, Michigan, where Jim Lyons, DSR member, works. The Michigan Sports Truth Podcast is a presentation and production of Phillips Media. TTFN, ta-ta for now. Merry Christmas. Hit them with a hind. Pound of the people. Happy New Year. Go Blue.
Absolutely. Happy holidays to all. Belated Merry Christmas. Happy New Year. And like you said, go blue to everyone.